Hello, students. This is Muhammad Magdy, your teacher of English. Today, we're going to discuss a prominent work of art from the American literary history. Our selection, written by Langston Hughes, is entitled Harlem and sometimes referred to as a Dream Deferred. So, Harlem or a Dream Deferred are two different names for the same work of art. Before we start, I'd like you to take a minute to have a look at these 5 facts about Langston Hughes and think about their possible meanings. A major leader? Yes, in fact, Langston Hughes was a major leader of the Harlem Renaissance. When you think of the Harlem Renaissance, people often think of that as the 1920s in Harlem, New York City, and that's natural. That's where it started. Hughes himself defined the Harlem Renaissance in this narrow sense. The Great Migration? Well, the origins of the Harlem Renaissance lie in the Great Migration of the early 20th century, when thousands of black people migrated from the South into dense urban areas that offered relatively more economic opportunities. The Harlem Renaissance itself was an artistic movement characterized by a wave of African American writing, art, and music that reconceptualized white people's idea of the Negro. In the 1920s, creative and intellectual life flourished within African American communities in the North and Midwest regions of the United States, but nowhere more so than in Harlem, the New York City neighborhood. People's poet? Actually, Langston was a poet of the people. His life's work was about bringing people together socially, politically, and artistically. Poet, writer, and the truth is, he was more than just a poet. He was a writer in almost any genre you can think of. Hughes is known mainly as a poet, but he wrote in many forms and genres, including poetry, short story, drama, the novel, autobiography, song lyrics, and even history. 1951? That's when Langston Hughes wrote Harlem. Harlem explores the lives and consciousness of the black community in Harlem and the continuous experience of racial injustice within this community. Now let's have a look at the text and read it together. What happens to a dream deferred? Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun? Or fizzle like a saw and then run? Does it stink like rotten meat? Or crust and sugar over like a sour sweet? Maybe it just sags like a heavy load? Or does it explode? As you can see, the poem has 11 short lines with no stanza break, and all but one line are questions. But wait, what a stanza break is? Well, a stanza is a group of lines within a poem. The blank line between stanzas is known as a stanza break. Okay, let's move on. What happens to a dream deferred? What kind of dream are we talking about here? The dreams we all experience while sleeping? Most definitely not. This dream has to do with conscious goals, hopes, and aims for the future. The speaker is suggesting that this dream is already delayed and that time is of the essence. This dream has to be fulfilled or else. The poem doesn't offer any solution to the postponed dream, it merely puts before us some tentative examples. Anyway, in the 4 stanzas that follow, Langston muses on the fate of this dream deferred. Does it dry up like a raisin in the sun, or fistle like a sword and then run. A raisin in the sun, a fruit, which was once juicy, now is seen to dry up and become useless as the sun rises each day and time passes, nothing happens. Anyway, like a sore, a wound which once neglected begins to turn bad and could be harmful to the health. These questions about raisins and the sun gives the readers vivid imagery of what he feels is happening to him as he hasn't yet seen his dream fulfilled. While this second question relating to festering like a sore paints a grotesque picture for the readers, one which can help them to strongly identify with the disgust Langston feels. At the time he wrote this poem, the slaves had been free for nearly 19 years and yet were still not treated as equals. This is his dream deferred. He compares his disappointment to a soul which festers and oozes, thoroughly giving his readers an understanding of the depths of his disgust. Does this stink like rotten meat, or crust and sugar over like a syrupy sweet? His next question about how it smells suggests two possible endings for this dream deferred. The first is that, like a piece of meat left to rot, it would just continue to get worse and worse the longer the healthy quality was denied. The second option is that it would simply crust over. People will become used to living in a separate society and become comfortable living their own lives in their own separate communities. Now, the next line is important. It's not a question, it's a suggestion. Maybe it just acts like a heavy load. Well, this suggests that he feels the heavy weight of the many years he and his ancestors would wait for others to see them as equal. Langston felt the heavy burden of this weight upon his shoulders. It had already been nearly 90 years since the African American people were freed and given rights as human beings. Yet, as they lived in separate communities, they were not treated as equals, and Hughes likened this to the feeling of going through life carrying a very heavy load. Or does it explode? The last line of this poem is written in italics, which causes the reader to pay extra close attention to the emphasis put on this final question. It's clear that Hughes believes that the African American people cannot tolerate the way they have been treated in society for much longer. He clearly reveals that after years of tolerating mistreatment, he certainly feels like giving way to anger or exploding. This poem belongs to lyric poems. Many literary devices are present in the poem, such as alliteration found in Dream Deferred. And alliteration, let me remind you, is the repetition of initial consonant sounds in two or more neighboring words. We also have similes and imageries found in dry up like a raisin in the sun, fisted like a saw, stink like rotten meat, and similes are figures of speech comparing two unlike things using like whereas. Metaphors also present and found in Does It Explode? And a metaphor is a figure of speech comparing two unlike things without using like whereas. The rhyme scheme of this poem is unclear. It has no particular rhyme scheme. However, the first four lines consist of the ABCB rhyme scheme. Now, before our session comes to an end, let's wrap up. Take some time to answer these questions. Well, that's everything for today. Thank you very much and see you next time.